Welcome to the latest review of Mythoard. This is the Mythoard Horde 28. Um, this is obviously different, and certainly I am happy to report, just at first glance, much improved in terms of what we were getting for content-wise here. Couple things of note. This is a Judges Guild journal. You'll see the pictures. There's a hardcover with Dunes of Desolation, which is it's a scenario book. That's really not true. It's got some scenarios, but it's actually a pretty cool supplement for desert campaigns. An Idle Pranks adventure, that's for 5th edition. So this Judges Guild is for old school D&D, probably Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Dunes of Desolation is Pathfinder. Idle Pranks is 5th edition. So you got a pretty good spread. There is an adventure card. There's also hex tiles, which we'll get to, a poker chip, and some other interesting content on PDF. So looking forward to this. This is definitely already a good sign that we're off to a good start. This is the Judges Guild Journal. You can see here the content, the paper is better. The card stock is better. The paper stock is better. This was sort of at the height of Judges Guild when the Judges Guild Journal was I think, a little better than it was in the past. And you can reflect in the articles as well, which are more about rules and less about fiction, which I always enjoy. So there's like a witch class, a random door generator, talking about reviews here, and then an actually really nice dungeon that's multiple pages, and you can see just from the map, pretty significant in terms of its scope. So quite a bit of content here that I'm excited about, and that you could see converting to 5th edition or just playing as is, and using, and poisons, falling accidents, bashing and mugging people, just really cool stuff that was sort of indicative of what I consider to be the 80s sort of burst of creativity here. So really nice Judges Guild, and they're not always that way, but this is a good one to consider. And then we have the Desert of Desolation, Dunes of Desolation, invoking Desert of Desolation, which is a D&D old school adventure. And this is from Prod God Games, and this is a desert primer. I wrote a book similar to this for cold weather called Frost and Fur years ago from Monkey God Games, which was about cold Arctic expeditions and adventures, and that's what this is. It's the same thing. It's got hazards. It's got basically everything you would expect from a book about the desert, how skills are affected, how equipment, the different kind of equipment, and then, of course, magic items. And what gets interesting is, of course, the monsters. And that's where you see some of the differences here. So Egyptian campaigns and Arabian campaigns are two different eras of play in what you would consider a desert campaign. And Pathfinder, of course, covers them both. They also throw in a little bit of Wild West there with the Desperado, which is kind of fun. But lots of different characters, lots of different monsters, lots of different variety, which I think is great. And if you're going to do a desert campaign, you may as well cover all of it. So you can see there's all kinds of monsters of all kinds of types that fit into that, as well as some spells. And again, they range from sort of Egyptian-inspired to Arabian-inspired archetypes that fit the campaign. You see Bedouin, Janissary, these are all from different eras of sort of desert nations. And then, in addition to faiths is where it gets into sort of are you going to do a monotheistic faith, or are you going to do sort of the more Egyptian faith? You can see they, of course, cover both, and they actually use quite a few of the Egyptian deities, as is. So if you're looking for that. And then there's quite a few adventures, all beautifully illustrated, and with great maps, which is what I always appreciate. So this is a really good deal. It is for Pathfinder. If it's something that if you want to play in any kind of desert campaign for any kind of 3.5 compatible, I think this would be great. I think it's probably usable with lots of systems, but mostly Pathfinder and 3.5. So always cool, and if you're playing in a desert campaign, that's going to be very useful. The Idle Pranks adventure, this is from our friends at Mythoard. I enjoyed their last adventure, which was the Legend of Old Crank. Mythoard loves pirates and they love robots, so not surprisingly that this adventure also includes both. It's about a pirate prank war where first level PCs, so that's for first level characters, get involved in some hilarity. And they don't use monsters as is. They make up their own all the time, as you can see from the Grub Growler here. Always guaranteed to have really colorful pictures and really nice art, as well as maps. And they do all that here, which I just love. It's hard not to love these adventures. So if you love pirates, which I do, you love robots, which I do, lots of fun stuff. I will say sometimes these adventures are a little chaotic. They don't follow the normal sort of procedures and how adventures go, because they're not traditional adventures. That's fine. It doesn't mean you just can't play it out of the box. You have to read it for sure. There's usually special rules. But a fun adventure, and I think a worthy addition to a Mythoard from Mythoard. Next on the list is the Stairs Below. This is the card. These cards no longer do the index piece. You can see that that's done here. But there is a little bit of map. This is not the most exciting map. And it involves tree monsters, so sort of treants, but not treants. Here's a little, you can see him there. This is probably not the strongest part of the set. But if you need a tree encounter, that will serve okay for that purpose. And then there's an adventure card. These adventure cards are hooks. This one's called Kobold Island. The idea being that if you have a bunch of these cards, you can shuffle them. So the value of this becomes more the more Mythoards you participate in, and certainly it really lends itself to a hex crawl campaign where you're looking for ideas. If you're not looking for ideas, this is not as useful. But that's the Mythoard card. And then there is a poker chip. So I don't know if you can see that poker chip. It's got Mythoard on one side and then one on the other. This is solid. This is a real poker chip, I think. Not that I use poker chips that often. They list it as a fate chip, which is great. You can also use it for inspiration, whatever you want to use. But I love this idea, and I always appreciate well-branded accessories like this. And this is nice and solid, so it's not something you're going to easily lose or forget, especially on a crowded game table. So that works nicely. And then we have this new idea, which Mythoard calls Hex 20 Dungeon Tiles. So these are hex tiles, as the name implies. This one just sort of says thank you. But they're mostly double-sided, except for that one. And what you do is you put them on the ground here, and then you can make a series of dungeons. Now, the downside, so for example, this one is enclosed. The downside is that you need a lot of them to make anything decent. The upside is you obviously can come up with some really interesting things the more hexes you have. I'm assuming there will be more of these in future sets. And that information, the more you get of these, the better the set becomes. And that's exactly what Mythoard's best at, right? Which is sort of rewarding people over the long haul to participate and stick with him. And then the thank you card. So overall, I'd say this is a huge improvement over last month's Mythoard. I was not as impressed. This is much better. I think Mythoard's still figuring it out. I personally don't need a hardcover every time. Which I think they were trying to commit to. So we'll see what the next one brings. But I think this is a much improved Mythoard, and look forward to the next one. Thanks for watching.